Hey, okay, so what I wanted to do, this is going to kind of be a twofold thing. We're going to keep it a little informal. Buyer 101, I'm going to start running through some stuff. If we start getting into some real life situations that y'all are dealing with, we can branch off and talk about those things, situational, whatever. And then same thing for like if it brings something to mind that isn't necessarily on the topic we're talking about, write it down, save it, and then at 30 minutes we'll pause, we'll go through those things. You know what I mean? So don't feel like we have to stay on these topics. Okay, so buying 101, one of the most important things that we can do to make ourselves more efficient is pre-approving the buyer before the pre-approval. So there's a lot of really simple conversations that you can have with a buyer to get an idea of their qualification level. So what's an example of something that is very important to know that you don't need to be able to pull credit to establish if they can buy a house?
Income.
There you go. You got a job, right? That's a good one. What else?
Down payment.
Yeah, you got some money? Yeah, where you at on your money? What else?
Credit?
So I usually don't have the credit conversation because most people don't know their credit. Their idea of their credit is Credit Karma, which is not an actual credit score.
Time of employment is something I ask.
Exactly. Why is that important?
Because they have to be at their job for over a year.
Wait,
2 years.
Well, hold on. So 2 years self-employed.
Yeah.
So 2 years of self-employed. If you're W-2, then as long as you've got 2 pay stubs, even if you just started that job, as long as you got a couple pay stubs and came from a similar career, like no big career shift, but those things, really, really simple, easy ways to not waste a lender's time, which only hurts your relationship. You keep sending junk over there, and in one conversation they find out the guy hadn't been employed in 6 months, or he just started a business 3 months ago. All of those things are, you can still put them in with the lender, but now you're putting them in with the lender under that pretense and saying, hey, these guys, they need a season for another 6 months. These guys, I think they might need a little credit repair. So instead of setting it up with, hey, go get a pre-approval, you're giving the information to the lender that you discovered, making their job easier and not wasting their time, because if they know they don't have a job, they're not gonna go and go through all of the automated application process with them. They're not gonna spend the $35 to pull their credit. And that piece is what will get you on the bad side with the lender. Keep sending them a bunch of junk and making them spend $35 every time to pull credit. They're gonna quit making your stuff a focus, right? So help weed out, give them the good stuff.
Real world scenario, yesterday I showed a house to people that had, they got laid off because COVID, and they haven't, of course you can get a job, but they're not working still. But they have like $20,000 to $30,000 down, but they don't have a job right now. So they're asking about a mortgage officer, and I was going to talk to Aaron later, but is that a question?
Yeah, well, so that you just discovered something that you don't know the answer to, but you discovered it. So now you can go find a solution instead of doing an intro to the lender and saying, hey, send them over an app, blah, blah, blah. But to answer your question, there's a lot of other factors there. So if they have some form of income, Social Security, spousal support, unemployment, all of those things can be counted. It's just a lot of different factors. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of stuff that you need to know. Knowing if they're married is very important, legally, not legally. And by what I mean by legally, not legally is sometimes people tell you they're married just because they've lived with somebody for 10 years. The difference there is if they're not legally married, I don't have to count that debt on an FHA loan. If they are legally married, both parties' debts count. So now I know if you're married and it sounds like you're FHA, I need to start asking some questions about your spouse. And so knowing if they're married, really, really easy.
Would their income, household income, be included with that, even though their debt's not included?
Well, so.
Or is that an Aaron question?
No. So let me kind of dive into it a little bit more. So there's ask your question again. The way you asked it is, I need to fix.
So since if they're like common law married, their debts wouldn't be considered each other, but if they live in the same house, would their income be considered?
If they're both going to be on it. So here's the thing there. So a lot of times you'll have a wife that comes to the marriage with a ton of debt, or a husband that comes to the marriage with a ton of debt, and then the other one has all of the income, And so you get in a situation where you've got to try to balance it out. Like if I put them on the loan, I don't have enough income to offset the debt that they bring to the table. So now I know I have to go conventional only because I don't want to count the spouse's debts. But yes, if both parties are on the application, you count both debts and both incomes.
Okay.
The trick is FHA, no matter if just one of them's on the loan or not, both of their debts have to be counted. So but the only reason you wouldn't want them on there is if their credit's bad, then they can't get approved. And so that's why all of that comes into factor. How long have you been on your job? How do you and your spouse get paid? Commission, overtime, W-2, 1099, contract labor, all of those different ways. All of those really, really matter because the qualifications are completely different. When was the last time you applied for financing, car, furniture? What was the result? That is a trick question where you can just find out kind of their credit stability. So if you know, doesn't mean if they got approved for a car 6 months ago that necessarily they're going to get approved for a house. But if you know that they tried to get approved for a car 2 weeks ago and got denied, chances are they're probably not going to be able to buy a house. So you just kind of do those things. Plus, it kind of tells you the personality that you're dealing with. So if you got somebody who's like, oh yeah, we applied for furniture last week, we got a Best Buy card the week before. Okay, so now you already are starting to kind of see some of the troubles that you're going to have is they're going to have a bunch of credit inquiries. Okay? Any questions on that? No? Okay, so preparing your buyer for the lender process. What can you do to prepare the buyer for the lending process? Oh, come on, Danita.
Well, I've got a flyer.
There you go.
I've got a printout.
Yeah, so there's the process, right? What I do is I make sure that my buyer knows the importance of the responsiveness to the lender, okay? I don't want to send somebody over for pre-approval, my guy do everything and get it all to them, and then my people drag their feet. So I set the stage on the level of commitment that they're entering into. This is not you're wanting to go buy a house, it's time to take things serious, right? I explain the level of commitment. I prepare them for the document. So there may be a bunch of special documents based on their situation that would be required, but all the basic stuff. They need 2 years W-2s. They need two years tax returns, 2 months bank statements, 30 days of pay stubs. So you can go through those things and actually, if you want, collect those up front and start getting a better picture for yourself. When you refer your client to your lender, do not just give them a phone number. Why?
Because they won't call.
No, you got to sell them. Like if you want them to use your person, why? Why would I not just call any phone number? That email introduction that we do is very, very, very imperative. And the wording and the way that we do it and the way that we introduce the lender, all of that is all on purpose. And it gets everyone on the same page. And if you haven't seen that email, ask Aaron or Cameron for it. They'll send it to you. All you do is change the client's name each time and change the phone number each time. And it's a perfect introduction. And it sets the stage for the commitment again and the timeliness, okay? So that's what that introduction is for. So you've got to sell the people that you want them to use. A lot of times agents struggle with that because the thought is well they're approved with them. Why would I want to rock that boat? Well, what you're going to learn over time is having them with the right lenders completely determines if you're actually going to get a result. Okay, there are a bunch of lenders out there that pass out pre-approvals like Jolly Ranchers, and they'll just pass them out online, just quick. There's no way you can approve somebody by filling out 3 lines of information. Okay, so just know anybody can get a pre-approval letter. Not everybody can get approved. Okay, so sell your lender, get them with the person that you trust. Always get the appointment. I don't care if they have a pre-approval or not. If they're asking to go see a house and that's your opportunity to go get in face-to-face with them, you're not going to sell them on the phone. You're not going to talk them into getting a pre-approval on the phone. If they don't know you, they've never met you, you've earned no trust with them, go earn it. I'm not somebody, still today, if I got a call, if my number was on a sign and I got a phone call, I'm going. That's my opportunity to get face-to-face. When I'm face-to-face with somebody, I know I can sell them. So take the appointment. I like to try to, if we don't have houses that we're going to go look at, especially like in this market, it's a buyer introduction meeting. So get them here into the office, sit down with them, go through the whole process, explain the process, answer questions, get to know them, and earn the trust. Now you can start leading them. Okay. Yeah, so buyer planning session is what I always called that. Agents don't do those typically. So if you've got somebody who is just a serial sign caller, and you say, and you set the precedence for a buyer planning session, and they've never heard that before, you just set yourself apart from everybody else that they talk to. Put together a buyer planning session packet. What does that look like? What can you give them? What value can you put in front of them when you have that meeting? If you can't get them into the office, meet them at the house. Even if they're not approved. Be an excellent service provider, not a salesman. Any questions on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, buyer consultation or the planning session. What are some of the things that we can achieve? Hopefully, in your first phone call, you've gone through some of those low-hanging fruit, easy questions. What kind of job and stuff do you have? This is kind of where you can deep dive a little bit more. What is some of the things that we could do in a buyer planning session?
Ask what they're looking for.
Yeah, get criteria. Yeah. What else?
Timeline.
Yeah, know their timeline. Is everybody here seen a buyer's roadmap? No?
Yeah,
If you haven't, I mean, I've got one that I made. Yeah, it's old. But we've got a buyer's roadmap. It takes you from the very beginning all the way through the entire process, and it allows you to talk about each step along the way, from your inspections to the appraisal to all the stuff that a buyer doesn't know to talk about. If you put that in front of them and you just now ease their mind because you explain this whole difficult, monstrous task, that you just simplified it, showed them how to do it. The buyer laws. There's also been called like the buyer 10 commandments. What are the thou shalt nots if you're a buyer?
Thou shalt not pull any credit.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Yeah, so anything that has to do with that. Cars, furniture, TVs, co-signing for your sister to buy a car down at Fiesta Motors is just like you going and buying a car. Like, explain all of those things. And don't take for granted somebody's ability to process that, because most people don't realize what all actually impacts their credit. I mean, going and signing up for your cable 2 days too early, they'll do a credit inquiry, it'll be a hit, and it can mess up your loan. If you were borderline 1 point, it could drop you a point. No one gets your social, is the way that I always tell it.
We've had issues with a lot of big cash deposits.
Yep.
You know, everyone that's Dave Ramsey and,
Yep.
you know, it's great, but, you know.
Source.
Then they go put 10K in the bank and it's, well, you can't buy a house now for at least 60 days.
And they don't get that because of them, they just improve their financial.
Right.
They don't understand that. So yeah, discussing that any deposit has to have a source tied to it. So if it can't be sourced, if it's mattress, shoebox money, stay away from it.
I mean, we've, gifts from parents, you know, and then you just pay them the cash.
Yeah, so if somebody is doing gift funds, that's obviously allowed and it's perfect. Let the lender dictate how those gift funds go. Tell them, hey, it's cool that just tell your mom, hold on to the money. The lender's gonna tell us how to do that and what the best way based on your situation, because different situations call for different things. Sometimes you have to get the money wired directly to the title company so it never hits the person's account. Sometimes they need it in the account, and so you just need to work that through. Good conversations. Pick out the pain points on the roadmap, the areas that have led to issues for you in the past, and talk about them. Know the speed bumps that you've hit. The biggest thing that you can do for a buyer, what's one of the number one things that blows up deals? You're already under contract. What'll blow up a deal first?
Inspection.
Boom. What can you do in a buyer planning session to plan for an inspection?
Set the table.
How?
Explain what's going to be on it, and then like telling them what you're trying to, once you get the inspection, what you want to achieve out of that.
What if you kept your worst inspection report or your first inspection report, or come ask me for my worst inspection report and start there? Hey, this is a house that was built 3 years ago, and I just want you to see, hey, here's another house that was built in the 60s. I want you to see that there's the same stuff on them. This is just normal. And so you just now took what is going to be shocking to them. Oh yeah, I remember that was on that other report, so that must just be on every house. You're normalizing the process to them.
Yeah, I warned my buyers like a week ago. I think we had an inspection on a house that we're buying for them, and I told them, look, we're just looking for red flags, and we'll go over the report when we get it, but we're gonna look for big things. Minor things
And I would even take it a step further. What are the red flags? Identify it for them. Go through them for me. There's 5.
Roof.
Teach me.
Foundation, AC, electrical, plumbing, and
Foundation. Plumbing, foundation, yeah.
Can you
There's
say
5.
those again?
Roof, foundation. So your top and your bottom, your electrical, your plumbing, and your HVAC. Basically, anything else outside of that is going to be cosmetic. So when you're showing them those reports in your planning session, simply go to those spots in 2 or 3 inspections and show them, hey, these are the things that are coming. And the cool thing, if you get in a routine, you start using the same inspector, you start to learn that they write the same stuff and they repeat the same words. It makes it so much easier when you set the stage.
Well, and also tell them that they are gonna have the home warranty, so if anything.
That's a
breaks,
great time to explain what a home warranty
then-
is.
Yeah. So, it makes them feel better about that inspection report too.
Absolutely. What were you gonna say?
Have y'all talked about, or maybe you already brought it up, but something I'm telling people now is if you're engaged, don't go get married yet.
Yeah.
We just had a.
Because you learned you had a situation.
They're going VA, they didn't have to use the wife's,
This is a perfect example of what we were just not talking about. So they got married, wife had debt, just dropped their approval because now she had to go on because it was a VA loan.
week before closing.
Ugh. That stinks. They just walked away from their earnest money and everything,
Yeah,
didn't
just
they?
lost it and, yeah.
Oh,
So
your sellers, yeah.
That'd be painful, right before your wedding.
Yeah, I know,
They're about to get married.
yeah, they both make like 300K plus, so.
Okay.
She qualified by herself.
buyer rep forms. Who's used one? You? When do you introduce it? Or how do you introduce it?
If it's a friend, whenever. If it's someone from the Zillow lead, kind of play it by ear. Usually, depends how the initial conversation went. I mean, if they're kind of skeptical on using an agent, I mean, we just try to get the contract down first, get under contract, and say, hey, this is just showing that you worked with us, you agree. If it's someone that
What is the thing that you're waiting to click to put that in front of them?
that
You're
you have their
earning
best
what?
interest.
There you go.
Yeah.
You're earning their trust. They got to trust that you are somebody who's not leading them into deep waters and dumping them off. So agents and brokerages that teach buyer's rep day one, buyer's rep first appointment, buyer's rep's required to show houses, they're setting the wrong stage. I can't ask somebody that I haven't met yet that just found my name on the internet to signing a piece of paper is a big deal to a lot of people. It ain't a big deal to us because we do it every day. Putting a piece of paper, they get scared. And you got to remember, you're dealing with common, everyday people that aren't dealing with contracts. They're not dealing with their signature. They only sign stuff when they are writing checks. So you've got to earn the ability to be able to ask for that. And you nailed it. Some people, easy, right? It's super simple. But the way that you explained it is perfect. When I do a contract for a buyer, and sometimes I don't do it then, and I do it right before closing, but it's really easy when you send in the contract. Hey, I'm sending you over the contract. Let's jump on a call and go over it. In a second email, I'm also going to send you our buyer's rep agreement. That's just an agreement I probably should have had you sign day one, but it just allows me to be able to put this contract together for you. Easy.
Send it all together. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Client control. You got to set proper expectations. Client control is nothing more than explaining the process in the right way in the beginning and reminding our clients periodically how it works. Create your own system that works for your business model. Talk about the showing process. Set the expectations, especially right now. I mean, we're all doing it because it's of the state that we're in. But we should be doing that on every client, no matter if the market's chaotic or not. Hey, when we make an offer, if you absolutely love the house, and the best way to decide if you need to make an offer is are you going to be sad tomorrow if that house is sold? So I'm setting the stage. We haven't even looked at anything yet, so I can't be selling them something because we're not in a house. But I'm letting them know, if you know you're going to be sad if the house is gone, that's probably the right one. And when you know you have that feeling, I don't care if we got 4 more houses to go to. You tell me, we'll go back to the office and we'll write a contract. We don't have to look at every house that's on the list. Go and cancel appointments. Agents get in this, they completely they completely miss signals and signs when they're showing houses because they're so caught up in the schedule that they've got to get to the next one in the next 10 minutes. Listen, hear the words. If they start placing their furniture, if they start telling their kids to pick out bedrooms, don't go to another house. Offer to stop right now. Hey, what do we want to do? How do we want to write up a contract? Move on. But you set the stage for that early on, so you can have control of the situation. You got a buyer? They're having a hard time finding a house. What are some of the things that will throw a wrench into our process? So first, having a controlled environment for them to shop in. Okay, so Zillow, throwing crap left and right. It's got other agents' names on it, other agents' phone numbers. Realtor.com, same thing. The portal. So using our portal, using the MLS portal, that's a controlled environment where they're not going to be getting bombarded with other stuff. But what is another type of house that's for sale out there that isn't in our portal?
For sale by owner.
Exactly. So how often, well, with you guys being newer, it might not have happened yet, but I will tell you it happens often, especially in a market like this. They go drive around, they see a for sale by owner sign, they call on the sign, they already talked to the person, they get the information, then they call me as their agent, they say, hey, we found this for sale by owner, we went and looked at it last night, blah, 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 it's this amount. Well, now I have to go try to work myself into a situation with a seller that thinks he's already got somebody on the hook. Very, very difficult to do. But if you set the stage and tell them what to do when they come across a for sale by owner that they think they might like, hey, for sale by owners, no problem. We can absolutely look at any of those in most cases. If you see one, write down the address, write down the phone number, or shoot a picture of the sign, send me the address, and I'll take care of it for you and get it set up the next time that we go out and look. So you just now took what I've watched collapse many, many deals, completely taken it off the table and controlled the situation. Any questions on FSBOs?
Well, when you're talking to the for sale by owner, another way you can get them in your pocket is tell them that lenders they don't like for sale by owners because then they become the realtor. Because they're having to do all the work.
Same title company.
Yep.
And the title company.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's a conversation that I would have if I didn't set the stage correctly, because now I'm recovering. But if I'm setting the stage up front, I don't need to tell you the reasons.
Well, yeah, for your buyers.
Yeah, just rolling it out.
But if you're going to knock on that for sale by owner, I have to.
Tell your dad we're in a training.
I've had the same issue with owners too. Like, well, I've already talked to the client. So like, alright,
We're doing a
you don't
training.
pay me or they're not.
You wanted me to tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is something that you can do to set the stage for your lender on controlling the client? What is something that you get them with your lender and then that buyer calls you? What's one of the conversations that they'll have about that lender? Rate shoppers, right? How many of us have rate shoppers? A lot of people think that that's all there is to a mortgage is rate. So much more to a mortgage than rate. I can show you the absolute lowest rate, but I can charge you 2 times the closing cost. So set the stage, guys. When I'm talking to a buyer and I'm talking about that mortgage process, the way that I do that is I just tell them, hey, when you start getting loan estimates, there's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion, but just remember there's so much more to compare than just the rate. And the reason that you've got to set that stage is because the way that Fairway works, they're not always going to be the lowest rate, but they may be beating them in every other area, in origination fees, closing costs. They may so many factors. The way that a lot of times when a lender knows that they're just rate sensitive and just shopping rate, how can they show them a lower rate? Anybody know? So you can do it buying points. There you go. So they can buy a half a point, up their charges on their closing costs and origination fees. Oh, hey, look, but I'm a 0.25% lower. Well, yeah, but that money that you just spent right here, it's going to take you 6 years to recover it, and you only wanted to live there for 3.
Paying interest on it.
There you go. Exactly. Previewing homes. This is actually something from the past because you don't have time to preview homes anymore. But what is a reason that we would go and preview homes?
It's another layout. and be able to like have selling points when you walk in to show it.
Mhm.
I started previewing homes just for content.
Mm-hmm.
I just want people to know what I do, so I just go and video houses and post it.
Yeah, and as you start to develop your business, typically every agent starts to fall into some kind of a routine, whether that's a price range, whether that's an area, whatever it may be. It seems you'll be able to find some consistency. And so if I know that, hey, 90% of my buyers that I sell are in this price range, I'm building my own portal, making sure every one of those come to me, and I'll go preview them. I'll make sure that I know every property that's available in that neighborhood or every property that's available in the price range, which is way easier today than it's ever been because there's nothing for sale. Let's see here. For sale by owners, you've got to be the first. You've got to be the first one to contact the for sale by owner. Like we said a while ago, if the client's already done it, you're now trying to sell yourself into a situation, and it's never as smooth and as clean because now we're talking about commission when we don't want to be talking about commission. Especially if your buyer has already told the seller that they're making an offer. How are you going to work a commission on that deal, right? Now you got to go back and try to get your seller or your buyer to pay more just so you can get paid, and they're going to know that, right? So you got to be the first one to talk to for sale by owners. When you we've covered sale by owners enough. Making strong offers. What is some of the easiest ways to make a strong offer, or to make your offer appear stronger, not just sales price?
Earnest money, option fee.
Earnest money is the easiest way, especially if you got somebody who's putting a lot of money down, they've got cash. Beef it up. Just know how to do your job and protect it, but beef it up because that money's not going anywhere if we do it right. So I've put the entire sales price in earnest money before. You want to make a statement, do it that way. Like if you're paying cash, why not, all right? I mean, put it up there and protect it. So there's earnest money is a way to make an absolute statement. What's some other ways?
Remove contingency, waive appraisal.
So right now,
Partial waivers.
there you go. Right now there's a lot of it happening where there's loans that are getting appraisals waived. If you so happen to have a buyer that's doing that, especially in this market, put that on a cover page and highlight it. No appraisal addendum. Which brings me to another point. That is another way to strengthen your offer. Take all of the bold points out of your contract and put it into a cover email. I mean, in this market, I've been making most of my buyers' offers, I've been making them with the buyer paying for the title policy. Agents miss that because it doesn't happen. So if I don't tell them, if I'm a $250,000 house, that's a $2,000 savings to the seller. So if I don't point that out to them, if I don't point out that I'm waiving the option period, if I don't point out that, hey, we've got $20,000, I put those bold points, all of the strong points of my offer into either a cover letter or an email. What's another way to strengthen an offer?
Okay, question. So if you waive your option period, you still do your inspection?
Depends. So that's actually, who was it? I think we had that conversation. So it depends. So that you've got to know your buyer. Okay, if your buyer is educated, they know what they're doing, they understand what waiving that option means. Yes.
So that's what waiving that option means, is no inspection.
Well, you can still do an inspection, but you don't have any ability to go back and negotiate it.
Okay.
The only time that I would ever waive an inspection, and I do it all the time, when I'm buying an undervalued property for cash, I've made room for those things. So I know that I'm assuming that all those things are wrong anyway, but it doesn't matter because of my sales price. So in those situations, absolutely. Cash deals, investors, that's a really good way to do it.
I did that with the new construction.
New construction, because you got your 1, 2, 10. And actually I waive those a lot because the way I teach new construction, you've got a 1 year bumper to bumper warranty. Everybody know what a 1, 2, 10 is? 1 year bumper to bumper, 2 years behind the walls, which is electrical and plumbing, and a 10-year foundation. That's your standard new construction warranty. So knowing I got a bumper warranty, no matter what happens, leaks, squeaks, whatever, that first year, the builder's on the hook to do it. So I grab my client's phone and I put their 10-month anniversary into their phone and say, order inspection. Have them call Doug Davis out at 10 months, get a full inspection report, provide that to the builder in month 10 or 11, fix it, all of it, bumper to bumper. Ask that question again.
Is there different warranties than the 1-2-10?
There used to not be, but I have noticed that there's some of these fly-by-night builders that are doing some weird stuff. So yeah, just up front, that's why you're starting to see now more and more on new construction contracts, agents actually getting smart and putting one builder to provide 1-2-10 warranty. Another way to state that is builder to provide a 1-2-10 bonded warranty. So the reality is a 1-2-10 warranty doesn't mean jack if that builder goes out of business. But if they bond it with a third-party company, now that bond is what the warranty's with.
Obviously, the builder would not want to do that or be as likely.
Some of them do. Some of them do. We just got a request on one of our new constructions for a bonded warranty, and we did it. We called and figured out what a bond would cost and did it. It just depends.
Is that pretty expensive?
No. It depends on the size of the house, and it's kind of like any insurance policy. What's another way to strengthen an offer?
Maybe a letter about the buyer.
Boom. Heartstrings. Heartstrings letter. That just won me a, what deal was that? Oh, 2 doctors offered to pay cash for a $550,000 house. I had a conventional 5% down buyer that wrote a letter, and I said, make the seller cry, and they did, and they won the deal. They beat out a cash deal with a finance deal. Shouldn't have happened, and the other one was more money, but the letter is 100% what did it. Heartstrings letter, and tell it just, especially if you know you're competing, tell your buyer, hey, make them cry. Like whatever it is, make them cry.
I had some buyers write about their dog with cancer.
There you go. There you go. Jaden had one this morning that they wrote about. They just found out last night that they're going to be adopting another baby, and that's kind of their motivation. Well, come on, they've already adopted 3 boys. They're adopting a little girl. You can't. I mean, that's awesome stuff. How can you not just show a stronger offer, but how can you strengthen your situation in when you're representing a buyer? How about the relationship with the listing agent? Yeah. Right? So you can make we've all dealt with different agents. We know that there's a lot of crabby people in this business. We know there's a lot of part-time people in the business. Set the stage with the agent first. When I'm amazed at how many agents will come to the office, have a buyer on the hook, start typing a contract, and they've never even called and talked to the listing agent. You know how many times I've wasted my time doing that? I mean, because there's another offer, they just forgot to put it under contract last week. Make the call. When I'm walking out of the house, before I'm pulling out of the driveway or pulling away from the curb, I'm looking back at the sign and I'm calling the real estate agent, and even if they've just showed a little bit of interest and I'm on my way to another house, having the conversation with the agent, getting information. Get information. Don't just tell, don't just talk, ask questions. Get the information. When you show up at the next house, now you can start using that information to sell the one that you just left. Sellers agents oftentimes will dump information in your lap that's invaluable. One that I'm doing with Jaden right now, called, had that conversation, found out that it's an estate that had already been probated, so the name wasn't obvious that it was an estate. We've got out-of-town sellers that don't have any money. How can I make that look good for them, right? I'm not going to ask them to do repairs. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to ask for credits. I'm going to do everything that I can to put that listing agent in the best position to get that offer accepted because I know their situation. That makes sense? Relationship. Make the other agent your ally. Buyer letter, put a picture on the buyer letter of the family, especially if they're like a cute little family or kids or, new babies, absolutely.
Let's talk about adding like the lender to when you send the offer over.
That's a really good idea. So, like Fairway, they have a closing guarantee. So if you're in a competing situation and if you've done the right thing with your buyer to get them prepared, Aaron can actually send a letter with your offer guaranteeing the closing date, and if it doesn't close, they pay the seller $1,000. Yeah, I mean,
Every day.
talk about strengthening your offer. If you got all these other ones that maybe they'll close, they don't know who their lenders are. Like, well, this one comes with money if they don't close, so we don't want them to close on time. Like, completely changes the conversation. That's a really good
Other
one.
lenders are 67% chance of closing on time. With Fairway, it's 97 or 98%.
That's awesome. See, that's great. That's really good information. Really good information. Yeah, lender guaranteeing. Let's see. Objection handlers. What are some objections that you guys have encountered?
On buyers.
What's the objections with a buyer?
Not ready yet. Of course, it's just a timeline thing. Figure out why they're not ready yet, but not ready yet.
Well, so
Down payment.
when somebody says they're not ready yet,
Why?
why do they call you? There's something telling them that they needed to call you, right? So you got to figure out what that was that triggered that phone call. And the best time to do that, day one, within the first 2 minutes of that first conversation. Find out what their motivation was. Don't just focus. I mean, you got to answer their question, but now take control. How do you know who's controlling a conversation? Don't answer that, Jaden.
You're asking questions.
Person asking the questions is always controlling the conversation. When you answer the phone, what's always happening? Somebody's asking you something, right? Flip it. Get control of the conversation. You answer theirs and immediately follow that up with a question of your own. So, hey, I'm calling about this house over here on 7th Street. How much are you guys asking for that? Well, that one's listed at $250,000. What, are you guys just looking for a property over there in that neighborhood, or is it the school district? I just took control of the conversation. Now they're talking. Now I can start thinking and dictating where I want to lead it, right? Ask questions. What's some other objections?
One of mine, where I feel like might be a hesitation, with some people, which I haven't really ran into it, I think it might just be in my mind. But like where they don't want me to know their personal like finances and their credit and
So,
because
yeah.
it's private and personal, and if we're just friends, but they don't want me to know them like that.
Yeah. So that is tricky with friends.
Yeah.
So friends, you handle differently, and I'm just aware of that. I personally don't have any of my friends that know my full financial situation, and I'm good with that, right? So the way you do that is it's your friend, so you can talk openly with them. Say, hey, listen, I know there's finances and stuff involved in this thing, so I'm gonna plug you up over here with our lender. With you, it's a little different because Aaron's probably a friend too.
Yeah, so I have to explain to them like it's
Yeah.
parents didn't tell me anything,
Yeah.
so I have no idea.
Yeah, just tell him he's not legally allowed to disclose anything.
Yeah.
But you just have that conversation ahead of time and say, hey, none of this stuff actually comes to me. I'm going to hook you up with them. Just tell them straight up. Now, somebody you don't know that's not your friend that you do need to ask those questions to, you've got to earn it. You've got to earn their trust, just like the buyer's rep agreement. You got to earn their trust. And sometimes I need to go show you a house or two. I need to get to know your family. I need to know your kids by their first name. And to do that, I may go waste my time. They may have a 400 credit score, and if I didn't ask the right questions, but you learn that over time and you know how to identify the ones that it's okay to go take a chance on. Doesn't mean that you're gonna get it right every time, but you can figure out the ones that it's okay to risk. Intermediary. Anybody ever had a hurdle with an intermediary? Know what an intermediary is?
Yeah.
What's an intermediary?
It's when we sell within our brokerage. And last night they asked me what it was when I was doing the listing agreement, and I just told them at Progressive we have 33 agents. I said, so a lot of times we have a big buyer pool as well. We don't want to cut ourselves off from allowing another agent to sell this property inside our
Perfect.
brokerage.
And so you can even take that to the next level. The most ideal situation for you as a seller is that somebody in my office comes and sells this property, or better yet, if I sell it. I can be in control of all aspects of it, and you explain because you're setting the stage and you're explaining the processes. You've already talked about all of these different outcomes and things that we have to look out for. So now they're gonna have confidence knowing, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'd feel comfortable if he was on both sides. But the easiest way to look at intermediary, it's only gonna become an issue if you as the agent make it an issue. Every time. The only times that I've ever walked in and had to try to help explain, it's because the agent started talking about representation, all of these things that just scare. It's like attorney talk. No, guys, hey, and an intermediary is usually only introduced when you've got an intermediary situation. Now in a listing agreement, it mentions this, that you're gonna allow intermediary. You can just blow through that. Hey, this just allows agents in my office to also show and sell the property, which we've got some of the best agents in town, so it's obvious that we wanna do that. When it comes to presenting a contract that has an intermediary attached to it, and it's got your name assigned to buyer and your name assigned to seller, that's when it kind of could get tricky if you don't know how to explain it. If you think you're going to have a client that is going to be challenging in that, put me as assigned to one or the other, and I will gladly jump in and I will help you handle that. So then it doesn't, only if, like I've never done that. Only if you think that it's going to be an issue for that client. And it's only going to be an issue if you make it an issue. Got it? Any questions on intermediary? For sell-by owners, objection handlers. If I can sell your property, net you the same or close hold on. If I can sell your property, net you the same or close to the same as you have projected while also taking care of all of the tedious details and paperwork, would you be happy with that? It's a really good, easy way to have a conversation to get yourself in the door for sell by owner. Figure out how to ask that question without it being yes or no, and 10 times better. Your question?
No, I'm just
No.
thinking.
I like
I haven't
it.
seen much for sell by owners.
I've seen tons of
I
them.
sent an offer in on one yesterday.
Did
for
you?
Buyers.
Did you have a conversation with the FSBO before the buyer did?
Oh, they haven't. I've only talked to the owner.
Boom.
Because I told them beforehand that, I mean, it's kind of, they're like, we know you don't really want to work with FSBO, but I was like, I mean, it's fine. I talked to the guy beforehand to make sure he would, you know.
So one thing we talked about in the beginning was in your buyer planning session, going ahead and talking about those for sale by owners. And when you see one, hey, I'll gladly show you any for sale by owner. Just give me the name and the number. You're just training them not to make that contact first. Get an appointment with the FSBO. That's your main goal. Get in the door. Same thing with like we said about the buyers. You're not going to sell anybody on yourself, your company, your skills, your abilities on the phone. Get in front of them. I don't care if that's coffee and they don't want you in the house because of COVID, whatever. Get an appointment. That's the only way that you're gonna have a chance with it. There is an agreement for compensation with owner form that a lot of agents don't utilize. When I go show for sale by owner, they have no, you don't know the moral compass of this FSBO. You don't know how snaky they could be. I get over there first. Oftentimes I'll do it the day before, the first day that I call them when they make the agreement. Nowadays you can do it all digitally. I still like to get belly to belly with them, but if you go and get that agreement for compensation signed ahead of time, puts everything at ease. Now you're not having to try to make people avoid each other. It's just easy. So it's an agreement for compensation. It's not a full listing. It's 2 pages, really easy, really simple, and FSBOs don't have any problem with them because it's specific to the buyer that you're showing. Cool? Anybody used one of those? You used one?
I have too.
Huh?
With that listing that
Yeah.
I have right now, I did that.
That's right.
What'd you call
You had
that?
other offers.
An agreement for compensation. They have other
He had
offers.
another offer, so I just had to send him a contract with 3% at the bottom.
That's good. And then you'll be fine. The one thing though, just so you know, is that is the way that's stated at the bottom of it is that's an agreement between brokers. So technically he signs that, you haven't, but
Yeah.
follow it
I
up
mean,
with
I
that
have it in
agreement.
a text that he said he would pay me, so.
If you feel good about it, I feel good about it.
No, we can rob his house.
Offer price. So that is oftentimes buyers look to use the agent on, hey, what should we offer? Same thing with listings, right? They look to you, what should we list it at? I don't want to be in that spot because it's not my money, right? So how do you get a buyer to come up with their own offer while also not telling them, well, you got to pick that.
Some comps.
I hate doing comps for buyers, but yeah, that's one way to do it.
But you pull the heartstrings, like how bad do you want this house?
That's it.
Yeah.
And
So the
market
way,
that we're in,
so
you give me your
that's
best
it.
advice.
Yeah. So Ms. Buyer, I can't answer that question for you. How upset are you going to be if you don't get this house? How upset are you going to be if your daughter doesn't get that bedroom that she picked out? You say that one, she remembers her daughter being so excited. Oh yeah, offer full price. I actually go over. Like you just got to get them in that emotional spot. And then what is me and you did this morning, I think. What happens with a buyer, especially in a market like this, where they make quick decisions, they come in over list price, it's hasty. What happens the day after they make an offer, or the day they do? Huh?
Remorse.
Prepare them for it. Every one of them. Tell them tomorrow, You're gonna wake up and have a little bit of a nervous feeling in your gut. You just made one of the biggest decisions of your life. You're gonna doubt it. That's normal. Every buyer that I've ever worked with has the exact same feeling. So just be ready for it. That way they don't call you the next day and say, oh, I made a huge mistake, I need to retract that offer. Now you gotta go look like a dummy with the agent that you just now set rapport with. Why can't you control your client, right? So set the stage, tell them what they're gonna feel. And even if they don't, set the stage, tell them that they're gonna feel it. One of the key term, anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? Anybody have any questions about something maybe off topic? Did we trigger any thoughts, any hurdles?
Actually, why don't you like going through comps when you're trying to find out like a price?
Because, well, so there's two ways of looking at that. Agents that get to the table by, hey, I know you love that house. Let me go pull some comps for you, and we'll sit down and we'll come up with an offer. The comps don't matter because the house is for sale for that much money, right? So let all of the protections in the contract catch all of that stuff. So you've got an appraisal protection, you've got an option period, you've got all of these different things. So, and it's got a sales price on it, and doesn't matter what comps I pull, if they're $100,000 less, if they want that house, they're gonna have to at least get close to what they're offering. So let the protections, let the appraisal, because what you think about the value does not matter at all. If they want that house and the banks and the appraiser says that it's worth that, let them buy it. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Agents use that as agents feel like they've got to offer a service, right? They've always got to be earning. Most of the time that just gets in your own way because they could be fully prepared to write $20,000 over list price. You just put comps in front of them and you missed the zone, or you missed the 3 comps that the agent was using, or whatever the case may be. That's another thing. Never call the other agent and say, hey, what comps did you use to do this, or how did you come up with this sales price? It doesn't matter, because their seller is the one who ultimately determined that sales price. They might have listened to the comps, they might have not. Put your protections in place, know how to write your contracts, and you're not going to lead your client into deep water. Now, if you know that a house is obviously overpriced, you're going to know, it's going to be obvious, and you see some at $250 a square foot or whatever, you're going to be able, you'll learn to be able to determine that. It's okay to talk about that with your buyer, but if they're dead set on buying it, don't talk them out of it. That's not what our jobs are. Our job is to help somebody go and realize their real estate dreams. And if they want to overpay, you can let them, right? You don't have to protect them. Make sense? You can advise. You don't have to protect.
When we were selling our house, agent called me and he was like, because we had multiple offers, so that was good. But one of them really wanted it, and he said, tell me how I need to write the contract. And so I told him, and he did.
I mean, there's...
Like, we got 40,000 over this?
I mean, those conversations, use your gut. I mean, go with your gut, right? I mean, obviously you're the seller on that deal and all those other things, but if you know that if you've got 3 offers, you've got 2 from EXIT Realty, agents you've never heard of before, and you've got 1 from Mark Nanny, it's okay to sit there and tell your seller, hey, I know that this one's less money. This guy knows what he's doing. And that's who you should want to be to every agent that you make an offer to. That's the way that I want to have those relationships. I want them to think that I'm on their team and I'm working with them, and I want them to go and sell my contract even when I'm short and come and counter me to get up to where I'm at, because I'm so easy to work with.
Do you do appreciation gifts for other agents?
Absolutely. When it makes sense, because there's a lot I don't appreciate. I gotta stop. I'm on recording now.
The goal is to have them say, I can't wait to work with you.
Exactly. And so when you think about it like that, what agents do I want to work with? Well, I want to be that kind of agent for every other agent. So building that rapport, creating that relationship, and then when you're in front of your seller, being able to just straight up tell them, hey, never worked with these 2 before, never heard of them before. This guy I know he knows his stuff. It may not be the best contract, but I would advise this. And now because I want to work with that agent, I don't want to work with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? There is a phrase that I picked up on really, really early, and You can use it with buyers, and it is a way to basically kind of bridge multiple conversations. Would it be helpful if? Would it be helpful if? Would it be helpful if I set you up a portal? Would it be helpful if I introduced you to a lender? Would it be helpful if I pulled some comps for you? Whatever. Would it be helpful if? And there are times with buyers where it's like, well, I don't really know what the next thing to do is. They're not really giving me anything. They haven't made a decision. Would it be helpful if? What stage are you trying to get them to? And use would it be helpful if to bridge to it. Cool? Any questions? No? Buyer 101. There it is.
Is it, so I know typically with the buyer's reps, in the past, it hasn't been a thing of like super urgency, but now with buyers,
Poachers.
they're just trying to find a house, so they don't really care if they screw someone over. Is that something we should start looking at doing like kind of up front?
So I'm never going to be a brokerage owner that tells you guys you have to have that day one, because all I'm doing is introducing a hurdle to you and not trusting you to know when the time is to introduce that. So the way that I will always answer that is when you know you've earned their trust, or when you think you've earned their trust, and you're going to know really quickly, put the buyer rep in front of them and get them to sign it. But don't you do that too soon, especially in this market, right? If you do that too soon, you're going to mess up the relationship. But the other side of that is if you do your buyer planning session, and then if you take the next steps like what we've been talking about and planning out, where do something different for your buyers, right? I mean, every other agent, all they're trying to offer is, well, I can find you a house, I can find you a house. Well, we all have access to the same houses. It's just how good are you at kind of working your inner circle, right? But that's a really hard thing to explain to a buyer, that, hey, I've got a really great system in our office where we can find you off-market deals. Well, yeah, so has every other agent told them that, right? What could you do with a buyer that would completely set you apart from any other, don't answer, from any other agent? Spitball, give me an idea. Nobody? Care if I just go down our little plan?
Go for it. Yeah.
So what if when you get your buyer into the office for their planning session, what if by the time they got home they had Tiff's treats waiting on them with a thank you card? Or what if you do a celebratory deal with them when they get that pre-approval? It's a congratulations card and it's an order of hot cookies. Like, no one is providing any kind of relationship advancing services. All they're trying to offer is, I can find you a house better than the next guy. Instead of focusing on I can find you a house, you might have access to way less houses than everybody. But if you have gotten them committed to you and you have earned that relationship in that way, it's really, really easy for a buyer to skirt off on you. They met you one time, you showed them a house or two. I don't have a relationship with you. If another agent calls me, I'm done. But if you sent me some cookies and you sent me a handwritten thank you card just for coming in and meeting with you, and you know my kids' names because you mentioned them in the car, like, I'm gonna get a little bit of a gut feeling when I'm about to burn you. Earn it. Make it where it's gonna be very, very difficult for them to skirt around you, because they're gonna feel guilty.
I've got a listing appointment next week. I'll probably just do the same thing after my appointment.
Send it first. So so on your listings, way to do that, you got a listing appointment. I always try to schedule that listing appointment at least 24 hours ahead of time. I know I've got a listing appointment. I just send over what to expect. So send over what to expect when you list your home, or ways to prepare your house for listing with 4 cookies from Tiff's Treats. And then you show up the next day, you'll notice that pamphlet's gonna be on the bar because the husband and wife both reviewed it, and you're probably gonna see that they've already started decluttering and listening to you, and you just paving the way. That's the way to do listings.
So send that in an email? Send it how?
So what I would do is I would go over to Tiff's Treats, set up an account with them, and give them a stack of your whatever it is you're wanting to offer. So you're preparing your house to list, whatever. You can find tons of generic stuff.
Yeah.
Make you something that's really cool, pamphlet, trifold, postcard, whatever, and say, hey, I'm gonna give y'all a stack of these. How do I order cookies and get them delivered? Especially if you know you're going to be competing against 3 or 4 or 5 other agents on a listing. Nobody sent them anything. Promise. That doesn't happen.
Send it the day before.
Yep, let them get it the day before. And that's where when you're talking to, well, we'll get into that with listings, but I'll just tell you since we talked about it. When you get somebody on the phone that says that they want to sell their house, you need to know, are they interviewing other agents? And you need to know when they're interviewing the other agents, and when would you want your appointment to be if they're interviewing other agents?
After.
Very last. Why?
Because they've already seen
Last
everything.
person you
Save the
see.
best for last.
But what's another reason? That's a good one.
Last impression?
If I've got another appointment, I'm not going to sign any paperwork
Yeah.
because I got another appointment.
Right.
But if I'm last, and I know I'm last, I can push that listing agreement right across the table, and if I've done my job right, they've got no problem signing it because they don't have any more commitments. So that's another reason why this digital world is really screwed up sells, because agents don't even carry paper to sign anymore. I can't close somebody if I can't have them sign something. Perfect example, did a listing up, Jaden threw me in, he had this listing that he wanted to get, and so he asked me to do it for him. So, you good? I thought you said something about time. Okay, I'm quick. He had a listing, it was a bigger one, so he asked me to do the appointment. So he prepared the entire packet, he did it the way that he likes to do it. I get in the listing appointment, I'm setting the entire stage, I'm ready to grab it, and I'm closing it. There's nothing in the folder for them to sign. So now I have to do an assumptive close. We walked out of there confident as all get out. We knew we had it, went back to the office to send it to him to sign. We ended up not getting the listing. I didn't have something to get their commitment, and it walked. And there was no identifying markers about the appointment at all that they wouldn't have listed. And if I'd have had the signature there, it would have been a done deal. So get back into the habit of putting the listing agreement filled out. Take the time. It takes 2 seconds, especially if you have your templates set up. Bring it with you, and that way you got paper. And don't feel like you got to go through your whole presentation. If they're giving you and dropping the signals and the signs of they're ready to sign, here, let's sign it. Stop. Don't talk your way around of it. Yeah, talk them out of it. Yeah. Any more questions?
No, that same situation happened with me the other day when I was going to list this house for the first time. Like, you know, when you're in front of somebody, you're like, no, they would be signing anything I sat in front of them right now. You could just feel it. And I didn't have anything. And I was like, I should have printed it off. I was like, I'll send that to you when I get home. They're like, okay, I didn't get signed that night. And then the next day, of course, they're looking at different houses. Long story short, I brought the listing paperwork and just got it signed physically, and it was just like a lot faster. And
especially with kind of your demographic from my age up, I prefer paper, man. I hate this digital stuff. I mean, I wish I could make Jarrett print out every contract for me just because I like the way it feels when I'm signing on paper. But paper, don't. Some of the old school ways are still some of the best ways. Yes, DigiSign is efficient and all of this stuff, but push it.
bring in an offer. So like yesterday, something I struggled with was I knew we were gonna want to write an offer on that house, but I didn't know I could.
That's a little trickier.
Yeah.
So the way that you could do that, because if you pre-fill out a contract and you haven't had that conversation with them, now they feel sold because you've already determined their offer. But if you take your computer with you and you got your hotspot, you fill it out there together, now send it to them for digital signature right there while they're on their phones, and you can walk them through the contract on their phone.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's you could fill out everything in the contract except for your earnest money and except for your sales price.
Got it.
Yeah. Cool. End it.